Let me share the screen. Each screen is visible to you people. Hope you answer, put the response in the chat box. Can you see the screen? Yeah, okay. So in the last session, we have seen how to like different controls like checkbox and all, and then we also have seen how to handle the font of a text area or text field along with the controls like combo box, radio button. We have seen how to create a group of the radio buttons and a list control and the different event handling mechanisms. Now in today's session, in the last session while concluding, during the lab session, I said something about creating a editor. So we will start with creating a menu option, and then we will see some of the layout options, and we'll set up an assignment which will explore all the options that we can use. So let me create a new file, and I will save this file as first.java. So class first, and this is the one which I'll be using as an entry point for my program. So let's create a class. Let's call it as UI frame extends frame, and here I'll create an object of UI frame class, which will trigger the constructor call. So let me import a package for creating a UI. Import Java Swing.start. Now here our target is to create a menu for the frame. So we'll start by creating menu option, and then we'll see how to handle the event for a menu. Right. So let's say that we want to create an editor like look and feel for our control. So what I'll do is I'll need basically a frame which I have right now, and let's use its constructor for putting out all the components which are required. And as usual, this dot set visible. This will be the last three lines in the code. Okay. Now let's say this is the VS Code. VS Code have an option or menu called as file, and then here I have a text field or text area in which I can type the things that I want. So let's achieve the basic UI, which can serve as an editor for us. So let me put out the controls which are required. So I need one text field. First of all, I need one text field. So let me create text field. Not text field. I want my entire area of the frame to be acquired. So I'll better create a text area. So let's initialize it. And let's say I want 30 rows and let's say 30 rows and 30 columns for this control. And then I'll simply say this dot add exta. Now I'm not using any layout controller. So if I'm not using any layout controller, I'm sure that you can recall this text area will acquire the entire frame for representation purpose. So let's check whether it does or not. So if I say Java C first dot Java, program shall compile, and then if I run this first, okay. So here you can see that I have a text area. So I'll be able to type multiple lines as an input. So the text area of the editor is added. Now the next job is to put out the menu for this. So let me use a control called as JMenu. So there is a control called as JMenu, which is required to create a menu. Now this file option and the things that are getting listed, each and every of this control have a name. File. So I have a menu called as file, edit, selection, view, code, run, terminal, help. So these are all menus. And these menus are residing on one control. We call this control as menu bar. So let me create menu bar. So let me call it as MB. So the first thing I'll do is I'll initialize this MB and I'll add it to the thing. New menu bar, and this dot set, or let's say this dot add J bar, and I'll say here MB. Let me verify. Fine. Let me compile. The compile is already been done. Now, if I run this, the menu bar is available on the frame. I hope you can see that there is small control or look and feel difference compared to the earlier execution. There is one section created, but right now there is no menu, right? So I have a menu bar on my frame, but there are no menu items. So I am menu and menu item. So let's next control which is required is gem menu. I'll call this menu as file, gem menu, and let's call this as file. After creating and putting a menu bar, let's initialize a JMenu. I will call this JMenu as file. And let me add this file menu to the menu bar. mb.add file. Now if I compile now, let me compile. So JavaScript first. Okay. New JMenu bar. Mistake. Let me compile. Let me run. Now here you can see that on the menu bar, there is a menu, right? So what we have achieved is there is a menu bar to our screen, and now there is also a menu called as file. But if I click on this file, there are no items. Like here, there is a something called as new file. There is also open file. There is a save as. So these options are not present in my screen. There is a menu, but this menu do not have any items. So let me create a controls called as JMenu items item, and let me call it as new file, then open file, save, save as. So I have created some controls. Let's initialize these controls one by one. So what I'll call is I'll say new file is equal to new JMenu item, and let's initialize it as file control file, and this dot add new file. Okay. So let's check out whether it is going to take effect or not. Let me, okay, if the frame is still running, let me close the program. Let me run this, compile this. Let's run. Okay, So I've added again not this. It has to be added to the file menu. So file dot add. Now compare, compile, and run. Now here you can see that on the file menu, if I click on this, the file is created. So let me rename it with the correct option. So instead of calling it as a file, I should say it as new file, right? And then if I compile and run, I'll get a file menu. If I click on this, the new file is added. Now, on the similar basis, we'll be able to add more menu options. So let's initialize all the options that we have, like open file, and put them inside menu. So open file is equal to new JMenu item, and here I'll say open file. This dot add. Let's say open file, then save is equal to new JMenu item. Here in control is save. Then oh sorry, again the mistake is not this. I have to say file, which is the menu in which I want to add this control. So file dot add, save. The last part, save as equal to new Gemini item into this, save as button, and file dot add, save as. Now if I run this, I'll be able to see all the menu options that we have just created. Okay, this is going to compile. I haven't made any typographical mistake. So Java C first, Java first. Now I go to here. You can see that all the menu options are added. Now let's say let's add a event to this. Let's add an event to this. If I click on this new file, open file, right now there is nothing happening. So let's add event to the items, menu items. So again, for event handling, I'm going to make use of action listener, implements, action listener, and the method will be equal action perform. Here I'll say action event EE. Now let's say J action tree dot show access log. This will be the parent for this. This means the parent frame will act as a parent for the J option pane dialog. I'll click file and right. So this is the message that I should get if I click on the menu option. Now for the new file, which is the menu item, I'll add action listener. So new file dot add action listener into this. Now let me compile. Okay, I have to go and perform an import of AWT event, import java.awt event for the package compiled Java C done. If I run this Java first, I'll get a menu, and for the file, new file, we have 100 event. So we get a file name as an option. So this is how you can create a menu and you can handle the events of this. Now you are able to start with the editor assignment. After performing all the new file, open file, save as, and the last option should be exit. I expect another menu here. File is a menu. I expect another menu which is called as font control. Whatever the font style you select using the font control should get applied to the text which is typed here. Let's say here we have Kolhapur type, right? So if I select the font size of 80, then this Kolhapur should get displayed in the font size of 80. So I want you to develop a font controller mechanism and add it to the screen, right? Any questions in the menu and all? Okay, chat box. I opened chat box. If you have any questions, you can post them. in the chat window. Otherwise, I'll proceed with the layout manager. Shall we proceed? I'll take it as there are no questions and we will proceed. Am I audible? Hello? Fine. So let's proceed with using some layout managers. So for that, let's pick up a task. Let's pick up a task. Let's say we want to create a UI which looks like this calculator. If I look at the calculator, I have a text field which is at the top, and there are some numbers, and at the right side, I have these operations, right? So there are also buttons called as percent, C, C, and all. Now, if I want to put this UI in my frame, how will I do it? I have to, right now, I know something called as a flow layout, which starts putting out the controls from left to right and top to bottom order, right? We have seen only one layout manager, flow layout, which is just throwing out all the controls one by one as they are getting added to the frame. And the order in which the controls get added is from left to right and top to bottom. Now, this is not going to work if we want to create a UI which looks like this, like a calculator. Now let's put this task, like I want to create a UI as an which is looking like in this calculator, and then I have to devise a solution, or I have to find out the way in which I can design this frame, which will exactly look like the calculator of the Windows system, right? So for that, we have to understand there is a control in we have seen variety of controls. We have seen button, we have seen combo box, we have seen radio buttons and all. So these components are broadly divided into categories, right? So let me say this is the frame. This is the frame that is one J component, Java component. Then we have seen there is that button is in a Java component, and there is also a radio button is also a Java component, as well as there is a text field. So this text field is also Java component. So these are the kind of components that we have seen. All are Java components. But these components have a category. This frame on which the actual operational components are being placed. This frame on which the actual operational components are being placed, this outer frame, is called as container. And these are all called as components, right? So J components or J controllers have two categories. One is a container and one is component. Now, frame is a container. In the similar basis, there is also a container called as panel, right? So this is the frame. Let's say this is the one controller, and there is another controller called as panel. So Java panel and Java frame looks like almost same. So there is executionally there is no difference between the panel and the frame. So if I create a panel and frame, they will look exactly same. One the thing which makes the difference between the frame and panel is on the frame you have a top bar or the control bar which have options like here on the right side you'll find there are three options like you want to maximize the frame, you want to close the frame, or you want to minimize the frame. These are the three options which are coming at the frame, and on the left side of the frame you'll find the text which is defining the title of the frame. So this controls this minimize, maximize, and close. These controls are present in the frame controller or container, and these controls are not present in the panel controller. So that is the only difference. I can say that the frame have this minimize, maximize, and the name options, whereas the J panel, which is again a container in Java, do not have this controls. Otherwise, like you have set visibility option to the panel, you have set size option to the panel, you can put the controls on the panel in the same way. Like we add the controls to the panel, frame is this dot. In the case, this represents the frame. We can say this dot add control. On the same basis, we can add a component to the panel also. The major difference is these controls are absent for the panel. Now let's see one by one what we exactly want to do, right? So let me create a new window. Let's say I have a frame with me and I want the controls to be created in a particular order. Let's say I want this controls to be divided into the columns and rows. So this becomes my frame, and I want my UI controllers to be divided into the grid option. And here, let's say I will say this first checkbox will keep my one digit, the second will keep two, the third will keep three, four. So here I'll type four as an option. Here I'll type five. Here I'll type six. Here I'll type seven. Here I'll type eight. Here I'll type nine. Here I'll type zero. And now I want this 1 to 9 0. All has to be button, right? Everything has to be a button. If I want to do this, there is a layout manager called as grid layout. Now grid layout have two options while creating. The first option is how many number of rows that we want, and the second option is number of columns that we want in a grid. So what we will do is we'll start creating this grid layout in a frame. So let's minimize this, and let me create a completely new file. I will call this as the grid control. Let me copy the basic blocks. Instead of writing everything from scratch, I will use this as my construct. I will call it as gridbox.java. And now the important part here is I have to rename this as gridbox. And let's see here UI frame. Instead of that, I'll just call it as UI. Here also I will call it as UI. So most of the things are done. And let's remove this unnecessary code right now. I don't need these options. I don't want menus. I don't want this. But I want my frame to be visible. So the basic code is ready. Now this code will create a frame and it will display the frame. Let me remove this action list now. The frame is ready. Now the frame will get displayed. Let me verify Java C readbox.java, Java C readbox.java. So I clean the frame. I can use this. So the frame is available, blank frame. Now the target is that I want this frame to acquire buttons. Like say I want this 0 to 9, all 10 buttons to be placed on my surface of a frame. So this frame can have something called as grid layout. So let me put set layout into new grid layout, and here three rows and four columns. So all the rows, or what I can do is four rows and three columns. So I'm creating a layout for this frame, which will have four rows in it and three columns. Now I need to add buttons. I want 0 to 9 buttons, right? So what I can do is I can create a button one by one. So I have to define something called as button, let's say BTN1, then BTN2, then BTN3, and so on. So I'll be able to create all 9 buttons here. So instead of that, what I'll do is I'll create something called as button array, right? And I'll call this as btn arr, and I'll initialize this array in the constructor. So I'll say btn arr is equal to new j button, and here I'll say I want size to be 10, right? So I'm going to create 10 buttons. Now I'll write a for loop for, let's say, integer I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, and BTN ARR of I, that is the number at the 0th index, is equal to new J button. And here it will initialize it. So plus I. So I here is an integer. I here is an integer, whereas the text label, the label that will displayed on the button is string value. So if I put two double quotes and if I say plus I, this will convert this integer variable into a string value. This will be done by Java on the go, and button will get the label whatever the value of I. So initially the I is 0, so the label for the first button will be 0. Now what you can do is you can say this dot add btn arr of index I. So what this code means? Code means is that you have created an array of 10 buttons. You are initializing every button one by one, and you are adding the initialized button to the frame. So let's verify whether 10 buttons are added to the frame or not. That too, you have 4 rows and each row have 3 columns. So let's verify this code. Okay, layout cannot find symbol. I have AWT event is been imported, whereas I'm not right now, I'm not using event. So better I will just use AWT rather than event. Or I can put another import statement wherein I'll import AWT. Now I'll call, let's run this as box. I'm sure that you can see that there are 10 buttons created on the frame, right? So this is how the grid layout works. But now here there is a limitation. The limitation is if I look at the calculator, let's open up the calculator again. If I look at the calculator, I just don't need buttons. I need many more things. The things which I require here is I want this right side thing. I want this controls like division, multiplication, minus operation, plus operation, the result operation, or the equal symbol. I want these all 4 operations. Apart from this, if I click on 8, the value is getting displayed. The value is getting displayed. I want this text field also. So how we will add this controls to the frame? Because right now frame have acquired the grid control or grid layout. So if I put a text field in the first control, then this 0 might represent your a text field. But that is not the look and feel that I want. I want the look and feel of this frame to be exactly like the calculator. Like top at the top of the frame, there should be a text area or a text field, and then you have a nice button controls in the middle, and then you want this operational buttons at the right side. So we have to create a blend of different layout managers into one program. So we have to use different layout managers in one program, right? One layout manager will put a text field at the top. One layout manager will put a buttons or these operational buttons at the right side of the frame. And one layout, which is a grid layout right now, will put these buttons at the center of the frame. So we have to create this blend. When this blend comes in picture where you need to create multiple controls defined or laid in a different style, and you want to put this all things on a single frame, you may need frame. Again, I'm picking up the word you may need frame, right? So what I want is, this, I don't want these buttons to acquire the entire frame. What I want is, I want my frame to look like this. So this frame is here. So what I can do is, instead of creating this all buttons on a frame, I will create these buttons on a frame. And sorry, I instead of creating these buttons on a frame, I will create these buttons on a panel in Java. And I'll take this panel and I'll add to the frame. So this outside box represents the frame and this inside box represents the panel. Then I'll create another panel which have a text field inside it. And I'll add this panel at the top of the frame. So let's say this is the text field panel and this panel will go at the top of the frame. Then the remaining part is these controls or operations. So I'll create another panel. Which have these controls like plus control, minus control, multiplication control, division control, and equal. So I'll create this control. Let's say this is the plus then this is the minus, then this is the multiplication symbol, and this is the division, and then we have assignment. So what I'll do is I'll take this entire frame, I'll take not frame, I'll take this entire panel and I'll put it at the right side of the frame. Right. So this is what I want to do. So I need one frame which will hold these all three panels. So if I have to count number of controllers or not controllers, number of containers that are involved in this program are 4. Now, what are the containers? First container is the frame. The second containers are panel. And how many panels I have? I have 3 panels. Panel for the text field, panel for the operations, and panel for the number pad. So according to that, in my program, I have to create these 3 panels and add them to my frame. So overall, this program is going to require 4 containers and the rest of the components, right? Let's start creating these 4 containers one by one. Let me minimize this. Let me close this calculator program. Let's come to the program. Let's go to the studio. Now there are various styles, coding styles, using which you will be able to handle this UI. You will be able to handle this UI. We have learned something called as a nested class, like which the class which is declared inside a class. Right. So here, nested class is the best way in which we can create this UI. I'm not saying this is the only way in which you can create this UI. You have variety of options. The best way is using nested class. So let's see how to use a nested class while for creating this UI. Let me, what I'll do is, if I look at my pane, I have we have the buttons which are already added to the frame. Now let's take out these buttons from the frame and put it inside a panel, and let's add this panel to the center of the frame, right? So what we will do is, this is the code which I have created buttons in a grid manner. So I'll say Control X. I have deleted this code. Now I'll create a class called as class button panel, which will extend a container class of JFrame called as JPanel, right? So I'll simply paste the code inside this. So what this code is doing is, right now, it is creating a container called as button panel. What it is doing inside this button panel is setting out its own layout as in a grid with 4 rows and 3 columns. Then it is initializing an array called as a button array, and then it is adding all the buttons one by one to the button panel. Where is the array is created? Array is created outside of a class, but this class, button panel class, is a member of UI class. This is a subclass, or this is a nested class of UI class. So this button panel do have access to the button array. So that won't be an issue, that how this array will be initialized inside the nested class. Now the second thing that we will do is, we will initialize the button panel class in our program. Let's call it as button P is an object, a new button panel, and then we'll see this dot add button panel. Right. Now let me try to compile the program. Hopefully it will compile. Okay. We will start with the dot layout. AWT is there. The biggest mistake, I am putting the code directly inside a class. This may happen. See, I need a constructor or an init method using which I'll be able to execute this code. So, sorry. So inside the constructor of the button panel, which will be called when I create the object of this code, which is actually creating the UI and adding the buttons to the panel in a grid manner, will get executed. So this constructor or the initializing method was missing. This is a silly mistake that can happen. Now the program has compiled. Now let me run this as Java, and the grid box is the name. Now, the look and feel has not changed. This is the same output that we have seen in the last execution, right? So there is no difference. Now we want to add, if I look at this is, I want the text field to come at the top of the frame. Now, but what has happened is we haven't used any layout manager for the frame itself. The frame has no layout manager. So what will happen is the controls will start coming on the top of each other, right? So we don't want that. For example, if I say J text field, let's say txt, txt is equal to new J text field. Let's create a text field of 10 columns and simply say this dot add txt. Now if I do this, sorry, if I do this, now here you can't see the text field. Why? Because we all know that if you are not applying any layout manager, automatically last control will acquire the entire frame. And what has happened here is the button panel is the last control that we are adding to the frame. So this button panel has acquired entire frame. So what we can do is we can use another layout manager. Now if I use a flow layout as if we were using in the earlier lecture, set layout is equal to new flow layout. Let's see what happens. So now I'm using the flow layout for my frame. If I compile this and run, you can see that this is what we don't want. Like there is a buttons coming on the frame and the text field is also coming on the frame. So this we want to display these both things, but not like this. We want our UI look like the text control, text field comes at the top, text field come at the top, and in the center of the frame, we want these buttons to appear. So again, this is not a satisfactory UI representation. So what we have to do is we have to pick up another layout manager. So when we add, let me remove this set layout from the frame. So when we add a component to the frame, there is another style in which we can add components to the frame using layout. So let me draw a blank. Let's say this is the blank frame that we have. Now this frame will get divided into sections. Let me use this is the section. These are the sections on the frame, right? So this layout manager is called as a border layout, right? This layout manager is called as a border layout. Now, this border layout can be used with some constant. So layout manager is a border layout. Then this is called as, this side is called as east. This is the east, this is the west, this is the north, this is the, sorry, this is the south, this is the north, and this is the center. Or you can say it as page start, page end, line start, line end, and center. So you can use whatever style you want. You can use either page start, page end, line start, line end, or east, west, north, south, and center. Center is common in both ways. It's up to you. But this layout manager is called as a border layout. So what we will do is, using border layout, we will put this text field at the north. If I put this text field at the north or a page start, this will appear at the top of the frame, right? So let's use a border layout while adding the text field. The border layout will not appear as an layout for the frame, but instead of that, the border layout will be added to the add call. So when we use this add method to add a component to the frame, what we can do is we can put a comma and call border layout, and this border layout have an option called as, or a constant called as north. Now if I just compile this program and if I run this one more time, now here you can see that the text field has appeared at the top of the control and then buttons have appeared. But again, the button have acquired the entire rest of the frame. So instead of adding the button for the panel of the buttons to the entire frame, what we can do is we can use again border layout and say center. this frame will acquire only central part. But as there is no other control, we will still think that the buttons have acquired the rest of the frame. There is a text control, buttons are there, and buttons have acquired the rest of the frame. So let's create another panel, like say this is the paint in which we want right side panel, which is an operational panel. There is a plus, minus, multiplication, division, and equal to symbol. So let's create a panel for this. So let me call this, let me create another button panel, or let me call it as an operation panel. Right, and public. Now, what are the options that I want? I want this plus, minus, division, multiplication. So I'll create these buttons in the main frame. Let me call it as btn plus, btn minus, btn multiplication, and btn division. Also btn eq. Fine, for the equal operation. So let me initialize these buttons one by one in the frame. So button, let's say plus is equal to new j button. Let's say this dot add. Now again, this is a panel which again needs its own layout manager. So this dot set layout, new grid layout, and I want for let's say plus, minus, division, multiplication, and assignment or equal to symbol. So I need 5 rows. 5 rows and 1 column. So this is what I want for the operation panel. And I'll say this dot add, I'll say button plus. In the same way, button minus is equal to new j button. I'll say this is the minus control that I want to add. This dot add button minus to the panel. Then this dot sorry, so button multiplication is equal to new j button multiplication. This dot add btn mul btn, let's say div, and the last one button equal to the new j button. This dot add btn, right? So all the buttons are created and added to the panel. Now we have to just initialize the panel and add it to the frame. Here, operation panel, let's say OP, uh, operational panel, okay, let's say OP is equal to new operational panel. So panel will get initialized, and then this dot add OP. But where? Now we want to add it to the right side of the calculator. So sorry, this is okay. We want to add it to the right side of the frame. So this side will act as an east side. So let's add it to the east side. So border layout dot east. Now let me compile and let's run. Now here you can see that at the east side there are plus, minus, division, multiplication, and assignment statement have appeared, or the equal to symbol have appeared. Now this is the basic UI which using which you can, this is the style using which you can create a UI for the calculator, right? Now one more thing here, the text is coming from the left side, the calculator preferably set the text from the right side. So what you can do is set horizontal alignment, and here j text field dot let's say right, right, right to it, and if I compile, and if I run, now from the text will come from the right side of the field. See, if I type in, now the text is appearing from the right side of the field. So these are the basics using which you can create a UI like a calculator. Now this is going to be another assignment for you. So the basic calculator will have this number pads and then the operations, and there should be a clear button here using which you'll be able to clear the text in the text field, right? So make sure that you create a nice calculator program, and here this calculator program will have something from the file handling also. I want you people to create a storage. So if I want a button to appear here, for example, if I open up a regular calculator from the Windows calculator control, then I'm able to recall the memory. I am able to restore the memory, store something, some values in the memory, and I'm able to recall that memory. I'm also able to clear the memory, right? So if I store the earlier result in the memory, then I'm able to recall that result whenever I want. So I want you to people to create a recall button, memory button, right? So let me store this. Memory here will be happening now. Let me see, equal to 900. Uh, in the memory, there is a value, right? Now if I just close the calculator and if I open the calculator one more time, and if I just call this memory button, we say whether it is or not. Hopefully there will be value. Okay. Now, and we will store memory recall is there, and we add. Okay, fine. Now, if I open up the calculator one more time, and let's say we recall underscore clear, and we recall. Yeah, it's working only without terminating. So, see, what I want is I want you to calculator should have this memory recall functionality. So, if you store some result, there should be a memory store button and there should be a memory recall button. If you store something, some result into the calculator, if I press memory recall button, that earlier stored value should get displayed into the text field. But here is one more catch. Like say, if you are handling a physical calculator, right now this is Windows, I'm closing the calculator and the value is getting vanished. But what I want is, you let's say that your calculator program got terminated. If you terminate the program, if I run this again, if I run the same program one more time, and if I now click on this memory recall button, the value must come back. So I want you to do file handling in which you will store this earlier result in a text file. So if I click on memory store, the result must be stored on the disk file. And if I next time recall the calculator program and if I click on memory recall, the value must be displayed on the text field, right? So this is the next task that will appear on the Moodle. Any doubts? If you have any doubts, you can post your doubt in the chat box. Any doubts or any question or any section that I must repeat? There, please upload all lectures of UI. I guess most of the lectures are uploaded. Last lecture and this one is not yet there. Yesterday's lecture, Thursday's sessions, both sessions, lab and theory sessions, whatever we have conducted, I'll upload both the sessions on Moodle as well as this session. See, when I terminate this lecture, it takes maybe 10-15 minutes to generate this all data on a WebEx account. So by today afternoon, I'll upload all the sessions of UI frame. I guess there are only one theory and one lab session is missing. The rest of the sessions are already available on Moodle. Okay. Any other any other question? So time for a quick poll. Time for a quick poll. Let me conduct. Let me start a poll. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to unlock. So the question for the poll is, so the poll is open for you. Please attend the poll. Last 20 seconds. Okay. So see, JFrame and JPanel both are the containers. JFrame and JPanel both are the containers, right? So if you have selected the both options, JFrame and JPanel, it is a very right answer. But if you have selected uh, one out of this, then it's not a fully correct answer. For example, here A35 I have selected both A and B, which is a very right answer, right? So the people who have marked both boxes that these are the containers in Java, right? So JPanel and JFrame both are the container classes. The difference, like Frame have all the controls, panel do not have all the controls. So panel is a sub-container kind of thing. Panel is designed to be added to the frame controller. So nice. The new assignments will appear on the Moodle as well as the recording. Right? You can leave the session.